There's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of people out there saying you should never prune your hydrangeas. When you have a plant starting to look like this, and this is a hydrangea, this is a Panicle hydrangea, you have to prune it. You can't let it end up looking like this in your garden. You shouldn't. It's out of control. It'll grow into other plants. You can prune your hydrangeas, and we're going to show you how to do that.
Hey there, Sean and Allison here, and we are in front of all of our hydrangeas. Well, most of our hydrangeas.
That's my hydrangeas here, yep.
And we've got some work to do on these in the spring.
Yep, we're going to go a little controversial today. We're going to show you how to prune your hydrangeas in the spring. We have 4 different kinds of hydrangeas, and we're going to get to those really quick.
But before we get to it, if you missed our last video, we talked all about rescuing our coneflower, and we actually saved it from being swallowed up by a whole bunch of yarrow plants. So if you missed that video, go ahead and check that out.
So let's get to it.
We want to take you on a little hydrangea tour of everything we're going to prune today, or not prune, and Sean will explain more about that. So let's start here with this rangy kind of mess here. This poor guy, this is our berry white Panicle hydrangea from Bailey Nurseries, and it's really out of control.
Oh, it is.
It's kind of a mess. So we're going to come, and if you're wondering what all of this is, we dug this up out of our old yard, and we took some Trillium with us. So that's kind of cool, and we're not quite sure what this is. So we still need to identify that. Moving this way more, these are all the panicles that we have right now. I think they're all of them. This is Firelight Tidbit. It's a beautiful shrub from Proven Winners Color Choice Shrubs.
You can see they're all starting to break bud.
Oh, that's cool.
Buds are starting to grow on them. Some of them have already started to break bud, and they're really leafing out.
This is Quick Fire Fab, also Proven Winners Color Choice Shrubs.
Rangy as heck.
This is a crazy hydrangea that needs some love. And Sean's going to talk to you a lot more about why specifically we're pruning this one right now.
Yep, I'm going to tell you the secret here in just a minute.
So moving away from our panicles, next we have this cute little hydrangea. This is a mountain hydrangea. Let's Dance Can Do.
It's already got a nice shape to it.
It has a cute shape. I love it, actually.
And we've already got some flowers.
Oh, look at that. Yeah.
Look at that. Yep, flowers are starting to form already. Woo!
So we'll talk about that one in a minute. Moving on, this is our Cascade hydrangea. This is a beautiful Fairytrail Bride, also from Proven Winners Color Choice Shrubs.
A little rangy, not bad though.
Some stuff going on here. We love this hydrangea. Beautiful white flowers. Moving on to our Bigleaf hydrangeas. Summer Crush, Endless Summer Hydrangea, Pop Star, Endless Summer Hydrangea.
Oh yeah.
This is this is their newest hydrangea in the Endless Summer line. And we cannot wait to see it in bloom. It has probably doubled in size since they sent it to us last year.
You know, the fun thing about these Endless Summer types of hydrangeas, they just keep flowering.
We love them,
They're beautiful. They literally live up to their name, Endless Summer. All right, so now that you know which hydrangeas we have here in front of us and that we're actually going to prune on today, you need to know the big secret about pruning hydrangeas. You need to know the age of the wood or the growth of that hydrangea and if it's actually going to flower from that wood. Certain hydrangeas flower from last year's wood or previous year's wood or growth, and then some hydrangeas, they will flower from this year's new growth or this year's growth of wood. So it's either on new wood or new growth or old wood or old growth. The fun thing is that you can prune hydrangeas almost any time of year if you know what you're doing and you have a really good reason to do it. So I'm going to go through each one of these kinds of hydrangeas here. We've got our Bigleaf, we've got, we've got our mountain hydrangea, we've got a Cascade hydrangea, and then we've got the panicles. We've got them all grouped up for you. So we'll be able to talk to you about each one of these and why you prune it in a specific way or not this time of year. First, we're going to start off with the Panicle hydrangeas, and one of the reasons is because they're just so rangy and out of control right now. I mean, if you're in a garden and you like to have your garden nice and neat, you don't want your plant to literally look like this. I mean, this thing is growing every which way, and if it's growing around other plants, it's going to crowd them out, it's going to shade them out, and I mean...
Not to mention this tree growing out of the middle.
I know, and actually it's actually part of the hydrangea. It's just growing from down at the base, and we think it's an actual sport, but it looks so weird, that growth. We're going to cut that out. I'm going to use my Corona Classic Cut hand pruners. If you want to know more about those or get a pair yourself, these are great. I've used these for years. The same pair is like almost 10 years old. Never fails me. Look for the link down below. On a Panicle hydrangea, you need to know where the flowers come from each year. And the flowers come from the new growth. It comes from that year's spring growth. So pruning in the spring is a really good idea on these Panicle hydrangeas. And have an idea of what you want to do with the Panicle hydrangea as far as shape goes and how far you want to bring it in. I don't want to prune this too heavy because I don't want to stress the plant out, but what I really want to do is get all this rangy stuff out of here. So I can see this is coming out here, this coming out here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to a point of attachment on this whole branch. I'm going to cut that out because now we've actually reclaimed a lot of this growing space for all of these leaves and the flowers that are going to develop here. Another reason you want to prune your hydrangeas during this time of year is because you want them to be healthy. You don't want them to have such a thick canopy that the stems are growing into each other, rubbing, creating sores and wounds on itself because it's growing so tight. And also, if it has a tight canopy in here with all this growth, it can actually hold a lot more moisture, and it can lead to disease and different pests to come in here and say, oh, that is perfect for me. I'm going to come live here. And you don't want that. So you can clear out the inner canopy. That's always a good idea. And the way to do that is to look for stems that are actually crossing out from like inside the canopy out to the other side. And you don't want that in there. You want to clear the canopy out. So again, point of attachment with the clippers, clip that off. Good to go. You can also come in and always prune out the dead on your hydrangeas pretty much any time of year. It's always a good idea to prune out the dead on the hydrangeas, on any hydrangeas. So I'm just going to come here and just get this dead wood out of here. This whole thing's dead, so I'm going to get that out of there. And again, panicle hydrangeas, they flower from this year's new growth. So all the flowers are going to be from what you see right here. It's going to be beautiful. And it's okay to prune these really hard this time of year if that's something you want to do. I wouldn't recommend pruning it too hard because you don't want to stress the plant out, but it's up to you. Never take off more than 1/3 of the plant though on any plant. I'm going to go after this big guy here. I'm tired of looking at that. Let's get our pruners in here. I'm going to go down the base as far as I can. We're going to prune that out. We don't want that. Look how big that is. Look at that. Also, this is kind of an outlier too. I don't really like that there, but the other side of it is it has all this growth here. This is older wood. I'm gonna actually just prune this right here. And the reason I did that is because we've got buds that are gonna pop right here. Just in a couple more weeks, they should start popping and start growing out and see the new growth right there, and that'll be great. That's where the new flowers will come out of here. And I don't know about you guys, this kind of looks funky right here with a little Y going on. I don't really like that either, so I'm gonna prune this right here. And we'll have new growth and flowers come from this side over here. Let's get that dead out. Well, maybe we're going to prune this pretty hard this year. All right, guys, I guess I came in, you can see I kind of had a whack attack, but it's going to be fine. This is what we pruned off of there. This is the material, and we did good because now we're shaping this plant. This is a great time to do this to this plant because it's going to flower from all its new wood, from all the new growth from this year. So what I've done is I've cut it here. We're trying to make sure that the plant, by cutting it here, it grows from these buds and further down with new growth, and that's where the new flowers will come from. Same here, same all the way around.
I know, it looks so tiny now.
It does, but I've also left other pieces of growth here too from older wood, and so it'll have a little bit of a balance of that, and that'll be fine. Moving on to the next panicle hydrangea, we've got Firelight Tidbit.
It's probably like my favorite, one of my most favorite hydrangeas in the whole yard.
This is a beautiful plant.
It's so beautiful.
And again, this is another panicle hydrangea, and so the same goes. We can prune this the same way as we pruned the berry white. It's going to flower on new growth, new wood this year. So we can come in and kind of have a whack attack on it in spring. It's okay to do. First, what I'm going to do before I start really whacking on this, I'm going to come in and I'm going to take out and look for the dead wood because that'll clear out a lot of the stems out of here, and then I can get a better sense of what I'm looking at before I really start shaping this plant. All right, guys, so I just went through, I cleared out a lot of the dead. There might be still a little bit more in there. Sometimes it's hard to see. I'm going to come through and I'm going to shape this. I'm going to take care of some of these outliers. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I want this to come back mainly into this area of the pot. And I don't want it to come out of that with the growth that it has now. That's not going to really remove a lot, but it'll remove enough and we'll have a lot better shape, a much better looking shape of this plant. And also anything on the inside of this canopy that's growing up and through and past other stems, I'm going to get those out too. last Panicle hydrangea. We've got quick fire fab here, and you can see this one's just as rangy as the other two. Look at this thing. Poor thing, we need to really get in here and prune this. You know, with our move, we haven't had a lot of time to get in and do this kind of hard pruning, and we wanted to save it to be able to show you guys so you knew what you were getting into and the right way to do it. So let's get in here. I want it around the side. I'm gonna come through and just shave it. Let's do something different than we did on our last couple here. Let's give this just a really hard prune.
Making me a little nervous, but
I know.
It's gonna be better for the plant.
Yep. And it'll look a lot better.
It'll look a lot better.
Yep. It's been established in this pot for at least a year now, and I think it's gonna do just fine recovering. Now you can see here, look at this. This is some funky wood, some funky growth. When you have a plant do this, it's not normal growth. You gotta prune.
Wait, what are we looking at?
We're looking at this S shape right here. I mean, look at this thing. And it's just growing kind of like it was kind of down here like this. You can't have that on a plant and have it be healthy. So you gotta prune plants. And right here, ha! There's an outlier. That was big.
Yep.
Look at that thing.
That looks better.
Huge. It already looks better. Wow, I kind of like it.
I do.
Yeah, it's a lot less, obviously. I probably took about half, and I probably shouldn't have taken half of the growth out of this, but it kind of needed a hard prune. It was really kind of rangy, so this is one of those extreme situations where you got to do what you got to do. But again, this is going to come back. It's got a good root system. It's getting plenty of water. It's in a perfect space of, you know, a little bit of sun, a little bit of shade. It's going to do great. So we've got great expectations for this plant. All right, next up is a Hydrangea Serrata. This is Let's Dance Can Do. This is a beautiful hydrangea, and you can see already has a really nice shape. It's already leafed out pretty much. Isn't that beautiful? Now you can see it's got some old flower blooms from last year in here that we didn't come through in deadhead, but we can get those out. This time of year, it's okay to lightly prune this to shape this plant. You shouldn't have to do too much to this hydrangea really, because it is a compact grower. And you can see it keeps its shape really well. You can know it's a compact grower because we haven't fertilizer to this, and you can see those internodes. So between the leaves, between this pair of leaves and this pair of leaves, and then even down to here, it's got a really short range of growth. And so it's not growing a whole bunch between those leaves, and so the internodes aren't very long. So it's not growing a whole heck of a lot very fast, which is good. And it's nice and healthy. It's not stretching for the sunlight because it is growing in a really nice place. It likes its part shade, part sun area. So what we're gonna do is, you can prune these right now to shape them, and I'm gonna do that a little bit, but I'm not gonna prune it super hard. I am gonna come through and deadhead these flowers out of here first. I'm gonna do that first, and then I'm gonna come in and I'll shape it a little bit. So here's another flower right there. And I'm just going back to its point of attachment. Oh, that one snapped on me. And I'm just gonna cut that off right there. The great thing about this hydrangea, this Let's Dance Can Do, it blooms on both old and new wood. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. And that's why you can prune it right now. I've already gotten all the dead flowers out. I'm gonna come through and I'm just gonna give it a light pruning over the top, kind of keep that form really tight for us here. And as I prune, I've already pruned out some here, and you can see down below, so I made a cut here, a couple cuts here. You can see down below underneath that, there was already some flower buds starting to develop anyway, down below what I already cut. So if I do this right here, I'll show you this. I'm gonna cut this guy off. This was down below that. It already has some flower buds coming in. Remember, when you go through and you cut this, you could potentially be cutting off some new flower buds or new flowers, but also below on this Let's Dance Can Do, it's already got more flower buds developing further down. So it's a great plant to have in your garden. You really can't screw this one up. All right, so Allison just literally told me off camera that I shouldn't prune this one that much. So
I'm
not gonna prune it that much more. The fun thing is okay, it's developed these new flower buds right here. It's already developed these flowers, right? So when I come through and I give it a kind of a, oh, there's an old flower. When I come through and I cut it like this, the great thing is these flowers are gonna come up, they're gonna develop, it's gonna be beautiful. Also from these leaf axils, you can see right down in there maybe, that's where a new bud is that's where a new growth bud, a new stem's gonna grow from, and it can flower from that a little bit later. It's just gonna take it a little bit longer to develop that out like this stem did, and to then develop that flower bud at the end of that stem. but it's going to flower this year from here. It's going to start growing from here because I cut this off and I'm telling the plant to grow from this point and this point over here. Moving on. This is a Cascade type of hydrangea, and this is Fairytrail Bride. This is beautiful. This is a hydrangea that flowers on last year's wood, on last year's growth. Any new growth from this year, it's not going to flower from. So you want to prune these in the fall after it's done flowering. That's when you really want to shape it. We really don't want to prune this that hard. We don't want to sacrifice really any of these new flower buds that are coming in, but we're gonna a little bit because we want to give it a better shape. So I'm just going to come in and selectively prune some stuff out here. Not really hard at all. And I'm pruning this again, and I know that I'm sacrificing some flowers right now, but that's okay. You can see I just made that cut here. I just pruned part of the stem off here. It already had a flower bud there, so I pruned it down to right here, knowing that I'm still gonna have a flower at the end over here. So that's kind of good to know. You can kind of prune to those points.
Well, that looks cute.
It's got a tighter form to it now. We didn't really take off that much. I mean, look at this pile.
I know, I love that you're leaving little piles by each hydrangea.
Yep, you can see what I've taken off.
You can see that over there.
The development of them.
All right, here we go.
So next up, the Bigleaf Hydrangea.
Okay,
this
we
one,
love our summer crush.
I know, and this is a beautiful plant. Like all Bigleaf hydrangeas, mostly, they flower on old wood, last year's growth. So if you come in and prune it right now during the spring and prune it heavily, you're going to prune off this year's flowers because they prune on last year's growth. So knowing that, what you want to do is come in and prune them hard in the fall, not in the spring. So don't do it right now, but do it in the fall. You can come through right now if you want to and deadhead all of these old flowers off, which I would recommend doing so you don't have to look at them. And I think this year we're going to prune this a little bit to get it under control, because you can see it's in this pot. It's growing off this direction towards the sun when it was over in another area. And really, if your plant's shaped fine and you've got this deadheading to do, this time of year, just go ahead and deadhead it. Don't prune it really hard unless you really need to. If you have a spot where this is a bigleaf hydrangea is growing and it's growing into a sidewalk or up next to the house and you got a rodent problem or something like that, then you should prune it. But when you prune it, know that you are going to be removing this year's flowers, and you just know that going into it. So we just wrapped up deadheading Summer Crush here. We're going to come over here and look at Pop Star. This is a big leaf hydrangea. It's beautiful. We're not going to really do anything with this. It doesn't need to be pruned. It's not out of control. So I think we're going to leave it alone. So that's really it. It's just so important. The big secret for pruning your hydrangeas is to know if they flower on old wood or new wood, this year's growth or last year's growth.
Right, and it's okay to prune your hydrangeas if you need to, and if you have, if you know why and you know which season they need to be pruned in specifically, right?
Yeah, and if there's extenuating circumstances or safety issues, you got to do what you got to do.
I know, sometimes you just have to do it and sacrifice a few flowers, unfortunately.
So we hope you enjoyed this. Leave any comments or questions down below for us, and let us know what kind of hydrangeas you have in your garden. We'd love to know.
Oh, we would, yes.
Yeah, and then make sure to also subscribe if you haven't already. We'd love to have you here with us and follow our garden journey.
And stay tuned for our next video coming up, which is going to be a whole bunch of spring gardening chores. There's some things that maybe you're wondering if you should be doing this time of year or not. We're going to tackle in our next video. And thank you for being here and for watching, you guys.
Yep.
Bye.
See you next time. Bye.